Have you ever wondered what happens when you give a professional dominatrix a microphone? Well, you're about to find out. Let's talk about whips, chains, cuffs, oh my. Let's venture beyond 50 Shades. It's time to bow down to the host of Mischief Matters, Mistress Shari, but that's ma'am to you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mischief Matters Radio. It is your hostess, Mistress Shari, and I'm flying solo tonight because Catnip was unable to join us, but that's okay because I have a fabulous guest who is a dear friend of mine and somebody I see very often, so this should be a breeze tonight, I think. And we also have questions from the Peanut Gallery. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my friend Briska, who is the house rigger at Mischief Manor. And if you don't know what a house rigger is, that means she ties everybody up. Sometimes she suspends them from a rig, hence the name rigger. And I'm sure there's a whole lot more that we can add to that, which is why Briska's on tonight. So Briska, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Shari. It's lovely to be here tonight with you. Thank you for inviting me on to your lovely show.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I can't believe it took us this long to get you on the show, considering that you've been hosting a rope event at my space for like almost a year now.
Yeah, just about a year. It'll be a year in May.
Yeah. So, and for people who are new to joining us, we do have a space in Wharton, New Jersey, and we do our rope events on it at that space, and Briska is there monthly. And do you want to talk about that? Tell us a little bit about it, because I could do it, but everybody hears me all the time, so why don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rope Salon is an idea that I started with the help of Mistress Shari over at her manor. Basically, taking the idea of what's traditionally called rope bite or a rope lab or a rope share, and bringing it up to North Jersey, run by me, a female rigger, and to be a welcoming space for all people who want to come and learn and lab with us. And your dungeon is such a great space, so we're able to provide a 101 class every session where we teach basics of single columns, double columns, basic safety, and then also for people wanting to learn or practice other harnesses and want someone who's, I would say, a quasi-professional, check it out and make sure that they're going the right route and safety and everything like that. That's what I do while I'm hosting it. And then also sometimes I love to help newbies fly or recurring rope bunnies in the air again.
Awesome. It's fun, right? I mean, like, the thing about it is, like, everybody shows all different people. Like, it's not even the same people each time, which is what I think is so cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We have tons of different people from the community come out. Sometimes we've had couples just check it out, want to know what rope bondage is all about and where they can go with their play. And it's great seeing all different kinds of people that come out and join us.
Right, and we encourage people, whether you're a rope top or a rope bottom or whether you're partnered or not, it's still so valuable to go to these kinds of rope salons and things, because it really helps you to hone your skills, learn new ones, and I don't know, it gets you out of your basement so you can socialize, which we all know how I feel about that.
Get out of your basement and come to a different one. Absolutely.
Exactly. Perfectly put. Come to one though with other people in it. It's really been, I have to say, one of my favorite events that I look forward to every month, mostly because for me, I just get to see the people. I get to do a little bit of socialization. I have so little to do except for open up the building, so to speak, that it's an event that I get to relax at, because I don't get to attend many events when they're my own because I'm running around organizing it. So for me, just being there in my space and not having to do something, but to watch everyone else, to see the interactions, to see it's fascinating, and I learn just by like watching.
Yeah, I was going to say, I taught you a thing or two in the last year, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And every time I learn, and every time I do something, which I never remember the names of all the knots, I just remember how to do them. And when I do it, I always then send you the picture. Hey, look what I did today.
And I'm always so proud to see them.
Yeah, it's always been such a oh, I finally have somebody I could brag to who gives a shit about my progress. You know, it's kind of nice. I want to get to some of the questions because you and I can sit here and talk all day about all the stuff that we got going on, but and we'll do that anyway. So I just want to get to some of the questions that people have asked, because this is, as I know you know, Briska, there's a Discord. Like this is language I know nothing about, because I'm so tech. You know, when it comes to social media, we all know Catnip does all my social media, and I know nothing of it. But there's a Discord that you guys all belong in, and so Catnip put out some questions, or put out some feedback to get questions, I think, from the Discord. So these are anonymous questions from people we know, but there's some really cool ones. So I thought that I would ask you a few of them. And one of them was just, I don't even know the answer to this myself, but how did you start off suspending people for the first time?
Oh boy. So I've been trying suspending. I know. So I've been, for people who don't know me, obviously outside of my community, I'm not super well known. And some people actually in the community might not realize this, because I don't talk very much about it. But back in the late aughts, about 2006, 2007, I did some kink modeling. And one of the websites that I worked with basically offered to kind of tutor me and help me learn to top. And I took some of that along with me, and it was very interesting learning how to tie from the gentleman who created insects. INSEX. I always spell it so people don't get super confused. But the website Hardtide I was on, and I loved rope from the first moment it touched my skin. And so I learned some tricks from him, but of course I was a very anxious college student, so I took what I could, but it was obviously a little bit overwhelming. And then I did get the basics of suspending down. So by the time I went to my, I guess, second or third test fest in 2009, I rolled up in, and Shari, you know the kind of dresses I like to wear, and I was wearing tea party style dresses, very Miss Frizzle, high heels, and I'm rocking in with my, handsome FCA, fighter boyfriend. And everyone's assuming he's going to do something to me, and I actually tied him up. And it was one of my first successful, semi-public performances, and I just fell in love with it. So fast forward a couple of years, I've been dating around the vanilla scene, and I met my husband, Artemis, my now husband, Artemis. And he, the same thing. The first time I put rope on his skin, he was like, I want all of this. And that's when I really got serious about 10 years ago about my career in rigging and teaching also.
Now, you brought up something that I think about all the time, especially you and I have talked about this, but you had just mentioned that people, when you showed up to that event in your dress and your heels with your tough boyfriend, people assumed he was the top and that he was going to top you. And that it was, that you were the bottom, and that's the stereotypical thing. And as a woman, as a cisgendered female, right? Because that's how you identify, right? Am I right in that? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. You never know these days; it changes all the time. But that is such a thing. People don't expect you to be the rigger. They don't expect you to be the top in rope. And what is that like as a female to be in this? Everything seems to be male dominated when it comes to kink, but this specifically is very male dominated, and it's only just now starting to gain legs for women. But you've been doing it a long time. So what's that like for you?
It's really interesting, and I think especially as I reflected on this topic for tonight, I really had to think about how things have changed in the last 18 years that I've been in the kink scene, because I pretty much joined it when I was shortly after I turned 18, bottoming, and I had a long-term dominant, and everything was very male-centered, as you said, and I knew that that wasn't where I wanted to stay forever. So it was interesting because I used to travel around bending to different conventions. And one of the places was SafariCon, which was in Chicago. I think it was Chicago at the time. And tying was very much so. The majority of people were men, and it was very tiny, generally white women who, or Asian women, who were the ones that were in the air because they can bend and they can do things, and it was ooh, ah, up and down in 5-10 minutes, just speaking, or very fast transitions. And it was an art that had traveled over here from Japan, which in itself was very male-dominated. So what's nice is that even as I was learning and growing, I was very encouraged by all of the men in my life that were teaching me. And I know that there's also a great organization called Bitch and Bitches that started about the same time, about, I think it was 2010 or so. I don't know if they started then. That's when I learned about them, at least. That is also specifically about female riggers and carving our own niche and our own style, I think, has been very interesting for me because I tie from a place not quite comfort, but not quite sadism either. Rope for me is the expression of how I want to control my partner and then add other things to it. Sometimes you'll have your riggers, mostly male, who want to just do rope. That's all they're focusing on. They just want to get the model up. They want to bend them. They want to put them back down. Whereas in my experience, being a, not your typical porn, mean dom, I'm, I think Nick has called me whimsical. He was like, you're the most whimsical rigger I've ever met. For me, it's more about, the expression of what I can do once you're there in my rope. And I don't know if my gender necessarily influences that, but it does feel like there is a striking difference from some of my more masculine counterparts.
It's funny that you say that because I always say, like, I'm the nice dom, but, like, I am much more of a whimsical dom. Like, I like to have fun, relax, and it's really all about have a good time instead of punishing people all the time, like some doms do. And, again, like with you with rope, it's more about the whole, like the whole experience. It's not about the end result for you. It's just
right.
The whole getting. Like you like to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I see you when you tie people. You're smiling. You're laughing with them. You're like making jokes that they can participate in. I've never seen you, and I'm not saying you haven't done it because I'm sure you could if you wanted to. But I always see you actually including your subject in with your tying, like your whole conversation, it's very much, a partnering effort, even though they're just being suspended, like they're not moving. You're doing
right.
all the movement for them, but
absolutely.
They're very much involved.
Yes, they are, because it's a conversation, which is another whole theory with rope tying that gets very high-minded. I'm sure I could discuss, but it might just end up boring. But it is a conversation between me and my subject, my bottom, my submissive, however they identify, because sometimes it is silly, right? Like, I'm tying someone who's wearing a pup mask and these itty-bitty shorts or boxers, and I've got them up, and listen, I love rope. I am very well versed in the safety of it, but sometimes I look at them and I go, let's see if I can do this really weird thing right now. And they love that. They love pushing themselves. They love, if there's someone that I have a power exchange dynamic with it, they really enjoy letting me not push them around, but like push their body a little bit more, like all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do this half split, or I didn't know my body turns that way. And then you can really watch them sink into the rope. And that's when you know that you've got that fulfillment of the power exchange, when someone is near nonverbal, even if you've been having a good time, and now you're actually in the scene and they're sinking into the rope and they're feeling that delicious, whether it's pain or comfort. One of the things that I joke about is that my husband will fall asleep in my rope if we're doing a date night and I've got him in one position for too long.
Right.
But, that's just what he likes to do. I've had him in the air for 3 hours before. We went to an event for our honeymoon and there was no one really there. We went early to the dungeon, and so it was just us and the DMs. And then there's no clock. So then I eventually take him down and he's a puddle on the floor, and I look at them and I'm like, can I get a time check? They're like, you've been there for 3 hours. but it's fine. No one else is here. We just watched you.
That's awesome. And, you know, and this, we just got a question that actually is so relative to what we're discussing, because you're discussing the whole experience and you like it to be like this, what I'm gathering, like, you know, encompassing collaborative effort, right? And you have riggers that we run into all the time. You've run into them. I have, that they insist rope and kink in general, just even what I do, what other people do, is about the sex. It's always about the sex. And like, you must have sex in order to do kinky things. And you must, you know, it must end in sex. Like, rope is just a vehicle to get more sex, you know, or going to a pro dom is just to get more sex or to get yourself off or blah, 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 whatever. And that's not always the case. So how do you deal with that? How do you bash that? Because it's so much more than that. And you have to see it to believe it. I get that. But like, talk about that. How do you deal with those people who are like, no, it's just about sex?
That's a great question. One of the things that I've run up against before is having bottoms tell me, you know, I really want to be tied, and I was talking to this rigger, but he was like, oh, or, you know, whoever it is, they were like, oh, I'll only tie you, but then afterwards you have to, like, fuck me, or we have to have sex or whatever. And I always tell them, like, that's not how it could be. Sex can be part of it, but also part of it is, how do you define sex, right? I mean, listen, I'm a child of the Bill Clinton era, right? Like, oral sex, is it sex, is it not? Like, I am very, and you know, Shari, even though I think you've averted your eyes every time, I am a very orgasmic person. I can hurt someone else and come from that. I can tie someone else and really be stimulated by the way that they look, the way, whether they're suffering or they're just enjoying it. There's a real electricity that is in the power exchange of tying someone and controlling their body that, to me, is more intoxicating than sex. Like, it might happen. You know, you can absolutely tie someone up. And I've co-topped for this before, where someone was like, hey, I'd really like you to tie my partner, and then I'd like to do things for them. And I wasn't involved in the sexual activities, but it was almost like this compersion, this joy of seeing them enjoy my work and also having in the rope. But that's not the end-all, be-all of the scene, and I don't think it should be, because it narrows our life experience.
Oh, very well said. I like that. It does narrow the experience. There is so much more. There's more than one way to orgasm. There's more than one way to have a good time, and there's more than one way to get, like, your kink on, so to speak. I mean, if I tell the stories all the time. You've heard me say them. Like, yeah, I don't necessarily get turned on when I'm in a session with somebody, but every once in a while, the energy is there, and even though nothing occurs, the energy is still there for it. Like, it's still present in the room, so you're still tapped into it, even though you're not going to act on it, and you're not going to actually go there. But it's like hanging there, like a tease, like a flirt, and it can really enhance the situation, because I think that's the good word for it. It really kind of stimulates the flirting, and even though you're not going to complete the act, there is satisfaction in just the flirting of it and just the teasing of it. And I think people miss that. I think that when you go into it with this mindset that it has to end in sex and everybody has to orgasm and that's the only way you know that it's successful, that's silly. That's limiting. That tells people that the only way they can have a good time doing something is if they end in an orgasm, and we all know that's not true.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm thinking of one particular scene that I've had with someone, and it was barely, like, it was a rope scene, but she was mostly on her back on the floor, and it's this lovely woman that identifies as straight, as far as I know, and, like, is usually a top, and she was like, listen, I really want you to tie me up, and I want you, like, my ankle's down, I'm a masochist. I'd really love it if you change my feet, punch my feet, whatever, but I want to experience rope. And I was like, great. So we did our negotiations, and all of a sudden, we just created this energy where we hadn't talked about it, but I was basically simulating sex without actually any of us being naked. And it was just kind of like we had built ourselves up to this experience, and it was just like, okay here and no farther, and that was fine. But it was so interesting to me, and especially afterwards I got some feedback from people who were watching it. They were like, I thought I was having sex. And I was like, that feels amazing to me. That's success. When my partner gets that really great energy, and also if I'm being, if I'm tying in public, if people are watching the feed, getting them off is also a big turn on for me too. So it's all about, how you see things.
I know as a rigger, rigger, you get to tap into your own exhibitionism as well. Like, it's cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though people may be transfixed on your subject, or your subject may be naked, so that's where everybody's looking first. I find that I don't know how people would watch you tie people up and not be able to take their eyes off you as well. Like, you're so engaging in the whole, it's just so beautiful, whatever you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And it's like a dance. It's really like a dance. And you have this way of really, I think, putting the people you tie up, it feels very natural. Like, all of a sudden, even the people that resist it are like, oh, no, this is really how I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what just they can't have that without you.
Yeah, it's amazing what just putting your hand on someone, to calm them down can do, because I can be fiddling down here, at their feet or on their thigh or whatever. And like, if I see them like they're wiggling around or they're watching what I'm doing, I'll just tilt their head up because they're not supposed to be looking at me. Or I'll put my hand on their arm and be like, okay, you relax this arm now, or whatever's fidgeting. And there's a real power in that. And it is a dance. It's funny because I don't think I ever feel elegant when I'm doing it, but like I can see that like with the right rigor and the right energy, it really does become a collaborative performance almost, even if there's no one else in the room.
And it doesn't look like work. It doesn't look like the rope then becomes like this extension of either you or them. Because sometimes it's more, I think it can be an extension of them. Like you're tying I don't know. It's so, it's very fluid. It's that, and the rope itself is a connector, So it it really kind of adds into that whole mystique of it, and it just it makes it look like you're sneaking a peek on something intimate between two people, even though they're clearly doing it for everyone to watch.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting too because ever since I strategically, without meaning to, purchased my personal rig for Christmas 2019, right before the pandemic. So I was practicing with one person for almost 2 years. It was just my husband and I, and like maybe someone that I knew that got the clearance to come over, during lockdown or whatever. But once I came out of that, I really started tying anyone who wanted to be tied, more or less. Anyone I vibed with at the Rope Lab, at Rope Salon, I basically opened myself and I was like, to improve my own skill, I want to work with people who have different kinds of bodies, right? Not just the traditional Asian damsel in distress type of body, but, people who are twice my size, the same size, really tall, really short, because it became about what can I do with this person? What can we make work for their body? Applying the principles of safety and rope and everything else, and really making it about making my subject not just feel the surrender, but also feel kind of badass because they got off the ground when they might have been told previously that they weren't able to get.
That's true, because I mean, and that also is like you're a woman, so people would naturally assume, I think, oh, well, you can't tie a big, heavy, burly man, right. And I've seen you do it. I mean, there's like, I mean, it's not, your husband isn't a little waif, and
no, yeah,
but I've seen you even tie men much bigger than him, and it's like, I think it's just you either have the skill or you don't, and you clearly practice your skill enough to say, to know how to do this. And I definitely want to talk more about this. Somebody was asking all about safety safety, which that's a really good segue. As soon as we come back from commercial, because this is a good point to break, and if we don't do it now, Catnip will be like screaming at me the whole time. He'll be sending me texts like, go to commercial, because usually he does that for me. So, usually he's the break in all the action. But we're going to go to commercial. If you're just paying attention, if you're just tuning in, we'll be back in a moment. We're going to continue talking with our house rigger, Briska, and about rope and all the sexy, wonderful sensations you can achieve from that. And in the meantime, while the commercials are playing, feel free to go to mischiefmatters.com and look up about us. All right? We'll be right back.
That's right. At 10 p.m. every second Wednesday on artistfirst.com. It's the worldwide internet show, the GL Henderson Radio Hour. Tune in to hear his special guests from professionals, live topics, and get a blast from the past with musical legends like Lisa, The Temptations.
I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go.
Manhattans.
Honey, you are my shining star.
Shanice. Shirley Murdoch.
And we slept the night away. And we lay.
Dana Dane.
To make it interesting, it's me, Dana Dane.
Tina Marie, and more. Tune in to the GL Henderson Radio Hour, the king of relationship drama fiction. Every second Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on artistfirst.com.
Are you in the market for kinky and not quite vanilla people to connect with, date, or even just enjoy some adult fun? Maybe you're looking for the chance to learn from experts on relationships, sex, and kink education topics. Hi, I'm Nookie Notes. And if you answered yes to those questions, I invite you to check out my site, Dating Kinky. At Dating Kinky, we provide a one-of-a-kind dating site experience. You'll find an education hub with live and on-demand classes and workshops, books, and more, and an interactive community where people from around the world can meet and engage. And coming up on the horizon, look for the premiere of our Dating Kinky app. For more details, come check out our website at datingkinky.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Dating Kinky and on Instagram at Dating Kinky Official. I look forward to meeting you. Thanks, and have a kinky day.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Mischief Matters Radio with your hostess, Mistress Shari. And tonight I am talking with a very good friend of mine and the house rigger over at Mischief Manor, Briska. And Briska runs our Rope Salon, and she's, always at our social events and our educational events, all kinds of things. And if anybody's in the North Jersey area or you're traveling to the area, you can see us at Mischief Manor. You can look us up at mischiefmatters.com. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Everything is Mischief Matters. Just look for it. And if there's any discrepancies, shoot me an email so I can yell at Catnip. Yeah, we blame him. But, before we took a break, we were talking about, rigging bigger people and just larger subjects and getting honed in on your skills and getting better and better and better. And all of that involves safety protocols. And, the fascinating thing is that a lot of people don't know this, but we had a big New Year's Eve party, and it featured Briska and one of our members doing a live human ball drop, which was awesome and so much
it was
fun.
So great.
And I'm so glad that we had all those pictures of it and everything. It was so great. But talk a little bit about that, because that was like a big deal. Like, you had to practice that before you could get into the actual venue to practice it. So there was a lot of safety protocols you had to put in place, assume were in place, and then actually do in the moment. Talk about how that works.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting process because me and Tina, the human ball, we've been tying together for a little while, and I'm pretty sure she entered the scene about a year and a half ago. So it was interesting having someone that I've been working with and also being like, okay, we have to practice this specific sequence. And it was really a matter of sitting down and figuring out one, what's a comfortable position for her to hang out in while we're all doing the count, and that she can stay up in without having to worry about losing sensation or, dropping too early or anything like that. And then figuring out the mechanics. And so really I got very inspired by just looking around and watching other people's performances. And eventually we decided to do, if anyone knows, basically what's called a butterfly harness, which is a crisscross harness with your arms out that she was suspended upright by. And then we also had both of her legs up in what's called a fudo-momo, which is called such because you bring your legs up, and the way that you tie it, momo is Japanese for peach. So it's basically leg peach. So having her kind of in this ball-like position, sitting straight up, and I had been gifted previously quick snap restraints, which are really great if you're using a rig or a St. Andrew's cross or anything like that, where you want the bottom to be able to release themselves in case of emergency. So it took us about 2 or 3 practice sessions to basically, in my living room with my rig, not very far off the floor, God bless her, she trusted me, where I basically was like, okay, we're going to have your chest attached to this quick release, but everything is going to be super tight, practicing the same patterns, the same harnesses, making sure it was in the same place that worked for her to grab it, and practice that fall forward. And there was 1 or 2 times where I just, had to maneuver something, tie something differently, making sure, for example, that her legs had the rope on the outside rather than the inside of her legs, because if they were inside by the thighs as opposed to outside the butt, she wouldn't be able to make that fantastic fall forward that she did. And it was really interesting working with her because she really had to know her body. We had to test it out and literally leave her hanging out for about 10 minutes. Because I was best case scenario, we can get you up and hanging out and looking beautiful in her full glittery dress and everything. And we
awesome.
also, it was really fantastic. I'm so glad that we have video of that. It's my favorite thing. And then the night of was even more interesting, because we did it at the Aerial Yoga Studio. And so, the woman who owns the place was kind enough to run us through and basically had to, because she had a single pulley system, tack on, I don't know if you remember seeing that ridiculous corset of just heavy sandbags she was wearing, because we got Tina up 15 feet in the air, and we had to practice that also right before the event once we got access to the space. And it was really
incredible
just
to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute just because I know that you went through all of this practice and the safety, because when I asked you guys to do this, just because my own naivete, and I'm just like, oh, you do rope, whatever. I'm just like, hey, could we do a human ball drop? And it didn't even occur to me that you would need to practice. It didn't even occur to me that you would have to organize it and figure out how to do it. I just think yeah, let's do a ball drop. So I'm so glad that you had the foresight and the know-how and if we're going to do this, we can't crack ahead. So you actually practice it, and you which is so important that to know that this is a serious thing. And even though it's kinky and sexy and fun, you have this woman suspended above a wooden floor. Things could go wrong. So the fact that you took the time to practice it and work it through a couple of times and all that is amazing to me, and it's such a hallmark of your dedication and your commitment to getting it right and to taking care of people when you're suspending them.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's the number one thing that people forget about rope, right? Because people really like the idea of spontaneous sex, spontaneous kink, and there's a certain amount that you can kind of pick up and figure it out. Right? You can pick up a cane and be like, oh, okay, so I hit the butt, and it's right here. Granted, that's a whole different science, but for rope, it's even more involved. And one of the things that I advocate, especially people who come to Rope Salon, is practice. It's practice. Going once a month to my Rope Salon will not, help you suspend in 6 months. That's ridiculous. You really have to be dedicated. Going out to different classes. I personally believe that my education when it comes to rope will never end. I recently went to a fantastic partial suspension workshop in New York at the run by Rope Boy. And it was so funny because accidentally we spent an hour on a single column ankle tie, but it was fascinating because we just dove into where can you put this? Where is it safety? How does your bottom feel? You know, all these different great things. And so I do think that, you know, not to be intimidating, but if you're interested in rope, go out to classes, start learning floor work. You know, if you don't have a partner, inanimate objects are always consenting.
Right, I know. I've seen more people tie up a teddy bear than I care to count. Like, it's hysterical to me. But, like, yeah, that's what you do. I mean, if you don't have a bottom, you know, and I hear that all the time, too, like, where people, you know, will say to me, well, can't you pro sub for me? I need to practice my flogging. I need to practice. Really? Use a pillow. Put a pillow on it. Like, it does. I know that there's value to practicing on real people, but when you don't have a real person at that moment, there are alternatives. You don't have to not practice your kink and your skills. There are ways. I've seen people, even in your rope salon, tie on their own ankles, on their own legs, when they don't have a bottom. Or, you know, and I think it's hysterical when someone says, oh, I'm a bottom, and you got two tops there, so one has one arm and the other one has the other. There's, you know, there are ways to do, like, it's so easy to say, oh, I can't because I don't have.
Right.
You know, you have to create it. Sometimes putting it out there in the universe, in the space, like, hey, I don't have someone to tie. I'm going to tie a teddy bear. Eventually, somebody else will be the teddy bear for you. But you can't, like, just sit it out just because you don't have something. So I love that in our rope salon, you know, we're just like, no, here, take a bottom.
I mean, I've seen Artemis just laying on the floor telling, all right, everyone take one thing. We're all going to practice this, you know, whatever it is.
Right.
And it's great, you know. I mean, that's one of the things that you go to a rope share, like, definitely be friendly because people are just there to hang out and do rope. And even if you only identify as a top or a bottom versus a switch, it's still great for everyone to know, you know, something about the other side, right? Like, just like any other kink. Like, bottoms should know something about tying and, like, mostly focusing on their body, but also, okay, is the rigger taking care of me? Like, are they doing this where it makes sense? You know, are they leaving me unattended when I'm tied up? Like, things like that, you know, everyone really needs to know and focus on. So even if you're, you know, oh, I'm only on this side of the slash, sometimes a little bit of experience on the other side goes a long way.
Absolutely. Plus, you should know, like, what, you know, like, I definitely have been tied before, not suspended, because that's not my thing, I'll be honest, but I've been tied before, and when I tie people, I understand what it feels like when you put the bite from the rope or the knot over certain nerves and certain things, and I know, oh, don't do that, it doesn't feel good, or put it here because it will feel better, or just the way you drag rope across the skin, because I know how it feels dragged across mine. There are certain aspects of it you should know how it feels, just like with any other kink. I tell everybody, if you're going to hit somebody with this paddle, hit yourself with it or have someone hit you with it at least once. You should know what it feels like before you wield it, because you have that much more respect for it when you know how it feels. When you know how it lands, you will then respect the implement. You know, so I feel like you'll respect the rope if you, you know, understand how it feels, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you totally. Even if it's just like, you know, and I mean, I always talk about suspension because that's like my favorite thing and my hobby, but, you know, floor work is just as valid too. And even just, you know, having someone one time, like maybe tie an arm, tie a leg, see how it feels to move or not move. It's like illuminating sometimes, you know, and I've also seen it where someone who's never been in rope before, I, you know, lay one rope on them. I've got maybe their arm like tied and like one wrap around their chest, and they're already like, oh, I see now. And that gets my juices flowing like nothing else as a teacher. It makes me so excited when someone's like, oh, I didn't think I would like this as much as I do.
They get that too. Whenever I try a new restraint or a new, whether it's rope, whether it's handcuff, like blindfold, whatever it is, like a new slug or a new paddle, and you see that look of like, oh, what was that? Oh, I didn't know that would feel. I love that moment. I love that moment when someone's like, oh, I never tried electric before, and let's do more. You know, where you introduce a kink to them that they didn't think. And rope, you must get that a lot, because there must be a lot of people who are like, nope, not for me, because they immediately think like, you know, tying someone to a chair or a train track. And they don't really understand, you know, what it's like to be, you know, encased in that rope. It's like a security blanket for a lot of people. And for a lot of people who didn't understand what it feels like to be hugged, I feel like sometimes they are in bondage and they're like, oh, this is security. This is comfort, not restraint and you know, being not allowed to do something. It actually becomes like a cocoon, right?
Yeah, it really does. And it's so interesting to me finding how people think about their rope play. Since a lot of the rope play that I do is pretty platonic, that tends to be what people are looking for. They want that cocoon. They want to like just slip into what we call rope space and kind of like, they're not thinking about the stresses and anxiety of the day. They're just like, I am floating and I am hugged and I know I'm protected because they trust in my safety and my skills. And they really, you know, it's kind of nice watching that. It's really a blessing for me.
I bet. Now, just because we want to be responsible and we have a few minutes, you know, we have a few minutes left, and I don't want to neglect to talk about this. And this is something that affects our community. It affects a lot of things, but there are responsible riggers and there are not. And what are some red flags you could tell people that, like, if they've never been suspended before, or they've never been tied by a person before, what are some things that they should ask, that they should look for before they enter into a you know, as part of the negotiation, really? Because there are some things that are like a red flag that you're like, don't get suspended by that person if they say X, Y, Z.
Right. So one of the things that I would definitely ask them is basically, hey, we've never tied before. You know, can you give me a demo of what it's like just for your sport? Like, how would you tie me? Can you just tie my wrist and maybe like put it, you know, behind my back or something? I would also ask people where they've learned, where they've studied. They don't, you know, some people, us nerdier people will drop 1,000 names you might not recognize, but knowing that a rigger or, you know, someone who's practicing rope actually has knowledge and can tell you, oh, I've taken this class before, I go to this rope event. You know, if it's just some guy who walks up to you and is like, hey, I saw this thing on TikTok, you know, I think that you would look really hot this, that would raise a huge red flag for me. Anyone who pushes you against your limit or, you know, no, you know, we can't do this certain thing because, you know, your body is just not the ideal way. It's so interesting because vetting riggers is so important. And I think that's also why it almost bottlenecks in like this kink, because someone like me, where everyone has seen me tie or knows people I've tied with, they pretty much are like, oh, okay, like she knows what she's doing. But it's, you know, kind of looks much. But yeah, so asking questions like where you've learned, how long you've been tying, asking to talk to previous bottoms, is a great thing for any, you know, bottom to ask a top, I think, to just be like, hey, like, can I talk to one of your other models? You know, being aware of any generally sketchy behavior is also one of the things I always, you know, tell people to avoid.
Right. Stay away from sketch. Yeah, no, those are all great things because it's important because you don't, you know, just like with me, you always get those people who are so eager and so this and so that, and they're like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they're not really thinking clearly, is that something they should be doing? Is that something they should be doing with that person? Did they negotiate for it? Did they, you know, and like we said before, like sometimes there are those people who think like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to tie you up and then I can do whatever I want to you.
Right. And that's really something that gets scary, and you kind of need to go slow. And I think also a good sign, a green flag of a good rigger is one who says, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then that's what they do. And they don't try to negotiate up in the middle of the scene. They're not trying to push you for sexual acts if that's not something that you're interested in. And in the same way that it's important to top a rigger, some riggers should also be, focusing on their bottoms and vetting their bottoms, making sure that they're not, in sub frenzy and, ooh, I just got in the scene and I can definitely take suspension and like, ooh, but they don't know their own body. So that's when you start to run into issues like nerve drop, and, you can really, suspension is edge play. You can really hurt someone if neither of you know what you're doing.
Right, and I think it's perfectly acceptable for scenes like this. I mean, it's happened with me. I'm sure it's happened with you, where someone's partner will say, "Hey, can I just sit? Can I just sit and watch?" Like almost like a chaperone, which is which is safe. Like I like that because it keeps it on the up and up, and at least you know that like there's a witness to what actually occurred.
Absolutely. And I think as long as that partner really wants to watch and is respectful of the scene, I think that's a great thing to ask. Like, hey, I really want to tie with you. Do you mind if my partner, sits nearby? They're not going to do anything or whatever, but just keeps an eye out. I think that's a great safety thing for bottoms who are tying with, riggers they've maybe just met.
It's a really helpful thing. And too, like I encourage couples and people, like let's say you're into rope and your partner's not, invite them to a rope salon. They don't have to actually participate, but just watch how people respect and respond to rope, and they may think like, oh, well, what I thought, this isn't it. This is so much different, better, or whatever. And it kind of makes it more of okay. Like, so maybe your partner's not into rope, but now that they see what you're doing, they're less threatened by it. They're less concerned by it because they're like, oh, that's what goes on here. It really is just people tying each other up.
Right. And I think that there's this huge myth that rope is super complicated. And 90% of what people do, bedroom play, we sometimes refer to it as floor work, whatever you want to say. If you know a single column and a single hitch, which is basically just wrapping a rope around another rope, you can do so much. So even if your partner's like, man, I really love rope and I really want to get into it, and you're not, just picking up 2 or 3 simple tricks will blow their mind. You don't have to go and do suspension. That's something I've been working towards, over 15 years. But I really like to focus on the building blocks of rope, starting simple and then really just thinking about where can I just place them. You don't have to tie knots. You don't have to get real tight and restricted. You can just play with the rope and, like you said, run it against someone's skin is a great way to really get someone going,
Right. I mean, you can even you can have so much fun with it. Like you can blindfold somebody and pretend to tie them, by doing those loose knots that you tug once and it all falls away. But if they're blindfolded, they don't understand that, and it's kind of like, I've done that with somebody who was hesitant with rope, right? But we blindfolded them because they thought it would be easier, and I just tied these loose knots all over because I wanted it to be done, and they enjoyed themselves and they had a good time, and when it was all done and I was ready to take them out, I was like, boom, and it just all came on loose because I was just tying those bullshit knots, and he was like, really? That was it? I wasn't even really in there? And he was so disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindfucker is a totally great thing to use in rope, making someone feel like they're really stuck and then they're really not. They actually have total control, where if you tie a slip knot and you tell them, you tell your bottom, don't move that arm, you're bound. But they actually could at any time, but they don't know that if they're blindfolded. And it really is interesting when you start taking other senses away from someone who's being tied.
Yeah, that's what I really enjoy. I like to do that. I like for someone to be, and then you find the next time they come back, they're like, okay, can you really tie me this time? Because now I liked it. They're not as hesitant. They're not as nervous. And I do that with a lot of different kinks. I mean, I can't tell you, I mean, I do a lot of things with like, okay, I'm going to put up, those, oh God, what are they called? The really hurtful nipple clamps, not rosebuds, what are they called? Clovers,
I don't know what the name
right?
is, but there you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then I put like just like a tiny baby clothespin that barely pinches, and they're like, they think there's something, and then I show them later. Like, I love that whole mind fuck where they think that it's so horrible. And then I show them a picture of what they look like, and they're like, oh, okay. They're like, I thought the weight of the world was on me.
Absolutely. That's one of the skills that I think is so great that, like, you and I both share that, like, okay, we're going to do a little something now, and then we can work with you to get to the bigger stuff. Because I know there are a lot of, like, people who love to tie, and they're like, I just want to go big and, like, make this big spectacle every time. And I'm like, you get better repeat customers if you kind of work with them. You leave them wanting a little bit more, Like,
right.
If someone's never been in rope before and you tie them by their toes to the ceiling, they might hate it and never come back. But if you start with a simple tie, some floor work, some thrust exercises, maybe then in a couple months to a year you can get them tied by their toes to the ceiling and they're loving it.
Yeah, we won't name it. We won't name any names, Sunshine. But that's a perfect example of someone who like was new to kink, new to everything, and when they came in, they were like, I think I want to try rope. And you just did, if I remember, a simple harness. And then they just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And now it's like a thing. And I think that is the way to do it. That is the way to with any kink, you do it a little slow because it's so much easier to add than take away.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll never forget that. You're like, oh, you're interested in rope? Meet my friend Briska. And within 20 minutes, she was like, in a hug and like a very simple like chest harness, and was like, more. And I was like, oh, let's not you now. We'll talk about this next time.
She didn't even know
I gotta go.
She just didn't even know she liked it.
She was very skeptical. Very, very funny. And now she's like, I mean, we're so close. And just the other day, this person was like, well, maybe you can tie me and my partner together sometime, or like we can do this. And I was like, I am so down to do whatever you want. Like, yes.
Oh, that would be cool. I would actually watch that as long as we can gag her partner, because we should mention her partner is like let's just say it. He's the host of Your Kinky Friends podcast, which you were just recently on, and you filmed it at the Manor.
Yes, we did. It was wonderful. Yeah, and I was able to kind of tie her in the background while he was interviewing me and a couple other people too, and it was wonderful. Just all three people doing our own with rope while we were, talking about sessions.
Right. So if you want to see video of Briska doing tying, go to yourkinkyfriends.com and look for her episode. Because our dear friend interviewed you for that, which, and then you'll get to see the Manor too, because it was shot there. So it's a win-win. Everybody gets in. We can plug everybody in one.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and I want to tell people that if you are in the North Jersey area, our Rope Salon is usually the second Thursday of every month, unless there is a conflict of interest like a holiday or something like that. But it's generally the second Thursday of every month. Although in March, it's not. It's the third because of an event. But it's March 21st. You could find all the information about it on forbiddentickets.com or on FetLife. And, and you can come and learn from Briska and see her in action and see the Manor, all those things, all those good things. But Briska, I want to thank you so much for being on tonight. I knew this would be great, but without Catnip, I was like, why even have Catnip on? He'd get no in edgewise. There would be no chance. So
absolutely.
Thank you
so much. And I did actually remember one thing that I did want to plug real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, yes.
I'm teaching April 7th for the community of geeky kinksters over in Bayonne. So if you are in North Jersey, if you're interested, I will be teaching my class called Tips and Tricks for Tentative Tops.
It's a great class. I've seen it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I designed it for people who have anxiety, have trouble coming up with, what to do in a scene, or if they freeze or anything. It's one of my favorite classes to teach, so that's coming up April 7th in Bayonne for Community of Geeky Kinksters. And if anyone else ever, has any questions or wants to reach out to me, it's Briska, Briska, and you can find me on FetLife. I've been there since it opened.
Oh wow! So you're like a pro at that. Yeah, definitely. Check that out, and I'm glad you got a chance to plug that. That sounds like a really fun
I'm so excited about
venue.
It. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. Give them my card.
Absolutely.
So thanks again. And if you're looking for any information about Mischief Matters, you just go to mischiefmatters.com. You can go to forbiddentickets.com to see all of our events. Some are social. We do movies. We do rope events. We have educational classes. We have support groups. In fact, Briska and I started a women's empowerment group that we run together. We could plug that. So we do run that together, and that is for anyone who identifies and lives 24/7 as a woman and would like to come to our empowerment group. It is just that. It is a support group for women to uplift other women in the kink community. And that's one of the things that I love doing. If you know me well enough to know, that I love supporting our community and giving a different variety of ways for everybody to express themselves and to increase their own skills and education. And so it's wonderful to have such amazing partners in this venture of mine. So Briska has definitely become one of them. It's gotten to the point now where there are certain things I'm like, Briska, what do you think about this? Should we do this? Should we do this? And I love
I love collaborating with you. It's been so great. Absolutely.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you're having a good time because I know I am.
This is a blast.
Great. Awesome. So, all right. Until next time, please, enjoy yourselves. Have a good night. Go to mischiefmatters.com. Check me out on Instagram. And most importantly, please remember that a little mischief matters. Good night, everyone.